Howdy, Liz.
Howdy, Mr. Robot, aka Mr. Reiki. How's your Reiki going?
Oh, it's good. I have helped some people lately. By the way, some people always ask me how to reach me. The easiest way, honestly, is just go to my website. It's myhealing.site. This is a good way. And then somehow, I don't know where, but somehow there's a cell phone number in here somewhere. And it's one of my old phone numbers, so it doesn't work. Just so everyone knows, as most people on this channel know, I do healing, energy healing, and I'll actually plug something about that later. But anyways, today we are going to talk about the brain.
Ooh, the brain is so fascinating. Yeah, so I've got our team of people in here. I've got Bashar, I got Jesus, I got Seth. Who else do you want?
You know, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a moment. You know, when I think of the brain, I think there's just no way it's the entire puzzle. It's not, you know, if you're a scientist, if you're a doctor, you see the brain and you see the whole person and the whole identity and the whole everything that makes up a person. And when I look at the brain, I just say, there's no way that's me. You know, I'm not just some mass and matter. And that has to do with my non-physical experiences, I guess. But to know that I am summed up by more than just physiology and biology and chemistry. So let's start out with I want to talk to source, but you know, our answers are always a little straightforward and blunt. Maybe we could just talk to source first.
Okay.
If that's okay. I know it's draining on you.
No, it's fine. I like talking to source. I've been having a lot of conversations with source lately because, you know, we're doing this thing where we're trying to crack the code of manifestation. So, you know, with CTT, you're pretty much unlimited in what you can do. I put in some limitations, like I refuse to work on physical ailments. Those of you that have been listening to me for a long time, you know that. Those of you that come to the CTT group every Monday morning, 9 a.m. Central, you know that I do not touch physical ailments. Why? Because I don't want them. So we are doing CTT to crack the manifestation code. A lot of it has to do with the brain. And I was talking to Source about the brain. And why do we have a brain? Because, you know, our brain, it's so complex. I've done, you know, CTT on animals. Their brains are very, you know, very simple compared to our brains. They do feel emotions. That whole thing that when people believe that animals don't feel emotions, that is incorrect. Animals do feel emotions. They may not show it in the way that we show emotion, right? But they definitely feel it because when we've had past lives as animals, what are we doing? We're clearing out those emotions from the traumatic event. And they're very relevant. And oftentimes they are matched to today's, you know, lifetime that we're going through and the issues that we're going through. So the thing about source is, excuse me, you know, we have a soul. We choose all this stuff before we come down. We make our plan. It gets programmed within us. And then we come down. And when we come down and we occupy the fetus or the body in the womb, that's when we're given this thing called the brain. And the brain shuts us off from all knowing. Now, we still have some residual all knowing when we're first, in the womb. And then when we're first born, we have some all knowing. But as the brain is wiring to our environment for our survival, because that's essentially what the brain is doing. It starts out pretty much as a clean slate, and it wires itself accordingly to what we need and how we need to react to survive our environment. So, for instance, if you're growing up in an environment with a parent that is very volatile, flash anger, pops off, you're going to have a lot of anxiety. Why? Because that's going to help you survive. You need that anxiety. You need to anticipate the unpredictable behavior. You need to be ready. Why? Because that's how you survive. If you are totally oblivious to the fact that this person can explode and harm you in the process, well, then your brain isn't doing its job. So the brain is wiring itself in order to facilitate your survival.
Oh, yeah.
This is what's so fascinating about the brain. Now, oftentimes when it's wiring and it's laying down these initial foundations and connections to the solar plexus, we have these large emotions like fear, again, the anxiety or whatever that those early emotions are that we have to experience in order to shape our brain to react to this environment. But then as we get older and we no longer need those feelings and that level of survival, then it becomes a blockage. And that's what I'm noticing through doing the CTT sessions. So if you have a lot of anxiety when you're younger, it serves you well. It helps you survive because you have to depend on these people for everything. So you need to be able to walk on eggshells. But then as you leave home, you're no longer, in touch with them very much. You're not living in that environment, that crazy. You still have this anxiety. And now this fear-based anxiety is blocking you from living your best life. And so that's basically what I understand of the brain. I also understand from doing these CTT sessions on cracking the code that we can use the full capacity of our brain, but we have to decode it to open it up. And certainly through the CTT, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the CTT because that's what I know. It's a consciousness transformation technique, but basically it expands the consciousness. So it's unlocking more of your brain capacity, right? You're becoming enlightened. You're processing, and it's unlocking. So you can actually use more of your brain capacity.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's do some questions. So I don't know, people will send you questions.
Yeah, they posted the questions on the Patreon. They're the brain behind the machine, is what I say. They're the ones that give us, I know you have a lot of good questions, Mr. Robot, but they give us a lot of good information to probe. And so these are just a few questions. This is going to have to be several parts to this video. So yeah.
Yeah,
so
and
we'll start with these questions. Let's ask source. Does moon water? Yes. And sun water? No. Not so much sun water, but definitely moon water. Now, I believe what this question is actually asking is you can charge water up outside. You can use the charge from the sun or charge from the moon.
yeah, I feel like this is kind of like a witchy practice, right?
Yeah, well, maybe it has its derivatives in witchcraft. I don't know. But I'm getting a no on the sun water, but a yes on the moon water. So it does provide benefits to brain function. And you have to back it. And as we said on another video, you have to back that water electricity charge with good intentions, right? So,
But
you know,
at that point, is it you having more of an effect than the moon? I feel like the moon is just a reflector. The light that you see is just a reflection off of the sun. So, you know, if the sun didn't have any effect, then why would a reflection of the sun have more of an effect?
that's a good question. Why would the reflection of the sun have more than that? It's about the magnetic power within the moon, right? So the sun has a different magnetic power than the moon does. The moon is more to do with human emotion. Why is that more important than the sun? Because emotions are what drive our lives, right? The emotion is what is laid down within us that causes us to make these brain connections. And that's why it's so relevant. So what would we say? What would our intention be behind that water? And I'm getting that you would need to positively, joyfully, request or manifest that your brain capacity, your consciousness expansion, which can be charged by the moon, and you have to do it during a full moon. That's the best time to do it. You get more power during a full moon. I've said this before. I am always more psychic around a full moon than I am at any other time. And you basically put that intentional charge within the water. You leave it out during a full moon, and then you can drink it. Or you can water your plants with it or give it to your animals, whatever you want to do. But yeah, is it better than filtered drinking water? Not necessarily better than filtered drinking water. Source is saying filtered drinking water can also have the same effect if you just take time out and bless the water, give the water gratitude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people.
So,
Yeah, people need to see our. We did the Dr. Emoto water experiment probe, and that's, in terms of water, I think if people are interested in water affecting them, I think you should just start with that video. But this is specifically just about like the light of the sun and light of the moon. So let's go ahead and skip this. I don't know what a nootropic is, do you?
nootropic, it's like a type of vitamin mineral. So it's basically, I would say, it's, how effective are vitamins and minerals to the brain overall is what I would ask.
Yeah. What do you get on that?
So Jesus pointed at source and said, ask him. Bashar's dying to answer here too.
Yeah, we're going to get him in just a moment.
What do you think about vitamins? No, see, source is saying your vitamins, your minerals, that is all provided for us here on the earth plane, and that we should do the resource in order to find it and nourish our bodies that way, instead of what he calls is artificial nourishment. Artificial nourishment is never as good as the real thing.
Can you ask source if reishi mushrooms have any effect on the brain in a positive effect, like a positive effect on brains?
I don't know what reishi mushrooms are, but do they have a positive effect on the brain? No, I feel like there's an element of losing control there. Are they a hallucinogenic?
No.
What do they do?
So they're an adaptogen, so they convert into whatever the body needs. So they're pretty awesome.
Adaptogen. Are they an adaptogen? Well, they're considered that. Why are they not good for the brain? They're more beneficial to the body than the brain.
All right. Yeah. Just wondering.
That's interesting. I've never heard of an adaptogen.
Oh man, there's so many, and this is definitely something that people are into. You can see it right there. I, for instance, take this and this, probably some other ones. Obviously, aloe vera, everyone does. Milk thistle is really. I take this for the liver. Um, I don't really see any that would affect the brain. Let's see, not really. Maybe licorice. Can we ask if licorice root helps the brain in any way?
No, it's more so the body. The brain is very specific. Its nutritional needs are completely different to the rest of the body.
Okay, so something I wanted to the reason I wanted to talk to Source about this question is, as I stated a while ago, I don't feel like this is me. I don't feel like I'm just a pile of meat. Can you ask Source if our identity is contained within the brain, or if our identity is more than the physical body?
Is our identity contained within the brain? No, our identity is contained more in the subconscious and the soul.
So, on the topic of the soul, can we just hit no brain probe would be complete without talking about a pineal gland? Um, and when you mention soul, there's really no good photo of a pineal gland.
It's so small.
Kind of like this ugly flap. So, can you ask Source if if the pineal gland is the seat of our soul?
The seat of our soul. No, the solar plexus is the seat of our soul.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's the major debate. Everyone, for whatever reason, thinks that this is literally where um, our higher dimensional self attaches to our physical self.
Is it where our dimensional self attaches to our physical self? No.
So you got solar plexus?
Where does it attach itself? Is it the brain at all? It attaches through the solar plexus.
Cool. We'll maybe touch on that in a little bit. Can you ask Source what the pineal gland does?
What is the pineal gland? Is that what is the main connector to outside of ourselves? No. Okay, so I got to know on that. Is this how I connect to spirit? Oh, wait a minute. Is this how I connect to spirit through my pineal gland? Yes.
So I'm
Is it
pretty sure it releases DMT. And this is something that's released when you die,
Mhm.
which makes people have intense hallucinations, which a scientist would argue is the reason for the light at the end of the tunnel experiences. You know, it's their reason for assuming that there isn't actually life after death. They just, because you do release a strong hallucinogen at the time of death. So, and we actually covered this in a probe once, but can you ask Source if the hallucinations at the time of death are they based in the reality of the universe, or are they just something like dreams and have no real meaning?
in reality of this world? No, they're like dreams, but it's because the brain because the soul is transitioning. So the brain is preparing the body to transition.
So when people have, so for me, the logical conversation to have is about like the death experience. Um, would source say that the things that a near death experience person, which is we're going to abbreviate as NDE, would source say an NDE person has seen the other side, or were they just hallucinating?
Did they see the other side? For somebody who's experiencing NDE, they see the other side. It's almost like yes, they did see some, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's very subjective to that person. A lot of times they end up in the spirit world or they see part of the spirit world, but their consciousness has not been fully transported. It's like their consciousness sees the spirit world, but their soul has not made that transition over. Now, I understand that because I know from what I do, and because I've had so many people around me die, right? Unfortunately, as soon as they die, I start looking for them.
Yeah.
And I can't find them immediately. They're not available. And that's because it does take about an hour and a half for them to transition into the spirit world. And then suddenly they make their way to me. But prior to that, there is usually about an hour and a half gap from the second that they died and the soul left the body to me being able to locate them in the spirit world.
Well, let's actually touch on that. Can you ask source what is happening to the soul for that hour and a half?
What is happening to the soul for that hour and a half? It's traveling.
Is it ascending?
Is it ascending? Yes, it's ascending into spirit world.
And does this process happen by itself, or is this something that source enables at the time of your death for you?
Does this process happen by itself? No, it doesn't happen by itself. Is it enabled by you? Yes, but there's also like gatekeepers and helpers, and it's already pre-programmed in. So when the soul is leaving the body, how does it find the tunnel? The tunnel automatically wraps itself around the soul, and it's like a vacuum, and it pulls you up.
So we can confirm with source that the tunnel of light isn't a hallucination, rather it's us kind of seeing the real process.
That's correct.
Because that's what I'm trying to differentiate is what is just chemicals and what is the next step. Because there's a lot of NDEs reports, people kind of lift up out of their body, they see the doctors trying to save them, pumping their chest. It's like, is that a hallucination, or are they becoming more than physical when people are seeing their surgeries?
Do people see their surgeries? Yes, that's sort of like, well, there's different elements because there's so many different experiences. So when people are seeing their surgeries, are they actually dead? No, they're not actually dead, but it's almost like an astral travel or an astral projection where their consciousness is, there you go. Their consciousness is leaving the physical body and it's able to monitor to see what's going on.
So can we ask source if the sensation of leaving your body through astral travel, if it has any similarity to the death experience?
Sorry, the simulation of astral travel, is that any, does it have any significance or anything like the death experience? No.
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is, as soon as our brain turns off, does it feel like when someone astral travels and they just get up out of their body?
I mean, yes, at the point where the brain switches off, yes. But oftentimes the soul leaves before the brain fully, shuts down.
That's interesting.
The brain is like a database. It's like a, I don't know how to describe it. It's the brain is actually a computation machine. And how you unlock the powers of the brain or unlock the full usage of the brain is when you're processing your emotions, you're doing that internal work, you're receiving that enlightenment. It's basically decoding what is locked behind that wall in the brain. And you're just unlocking little bits at a time. Now, I know that from the CTT, that's what we're doing. We unlock a little bit, the consciousness expands. Unlock a little bit, the consciousness expands. So it's really complex mathematical equations. And that's what we're doing when we're processing energy.
I found the perfect question for Bashar to finally pull him in. What type of ET DNA has had the most impact on our species?
Well, let's ask this question. Do you have DNA? No. ET doesn't have DNA.
Currently speaking, but let's refer to the past.
Okay.
Assuming that they have evolved past physicality, can we ask Bashar if there's any ET DNA in current modern day humans?
Is there any ET DNA in current modern day humans? No, it all dissipated. That was a good question.
Well, and that's fine, but we're not really developing anymore. Can you ask Bashar if there was any key proponent from ET DNA that contributed to the development of our species?
Is there any key component of ET DNA that contributed to the development of our species? Well, the whole brain idea is not from this. Is it from this universe? No, it's not from this universe. This is from a past universe.
Cool.
And the brain is something that is easily controlled from the spirit world.
Oh, I bet. I am constantly aware that the universe literally around me is experiencing the same things that I'm experiencing at the same moment. And I would love to get into that if you want to hear my weird synchronicities that allows me to know that that's happening, but we can get into that after. Does our brain have anything to do with astral travel?
Does our brain have anything to do with astral travel? Yes, it controls the astral travel. It allows the consciousness to disconnect or unhook itself from the brain, but it maintains some sort of string or some sort of strand, and the consciousness is allowed to travel.
Is it referred to as a golden strand or golden string?
As a golden string. Yes, that's one name for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least one name for it. Yeah, it's so interesting that you brought that up because that's a concept that astral travelers are very aware of. Supposedly inseparable from your body. I know you might say something different. We don't want to scare the astral travelers.
Does it mean that the if your consciousness travels, has consciousness ever traveled and not being able to get reside back in the brain? No, it usually goes back unless the body is deceased whilst traveling.
That would be interesting to talk about. If you're astral traveling and your body dies, does your soul catch up to your consciousness?
Ooh, if you're astral traveling and your body does, does your soul catch up to your consciousness? Yes, it tends to grab the consciousness back and then it'll take the consciousness. Does it take the consciousness with it into the spirit world? Well, it drops a lot of the consciousness, the sort of earth plane consciousness, but it takes an element of that consciousness into the spirit world with it.
Can you ask Source if the human identity is mostly what we think of as our consciousness, or is it mostly our soul?
Human identity. Is it mostly our consciousness or mostly our soul? It's the subconscious.
But when we're dead and we don't have, so subconscious resides in a physical brain. So I'm just wondering,
The subconscious reside in the physical brain. It's connected to the physical brain, but most of it resides within. Does it reside within the solar plexus? Yes. So the subconscious resides in the solar plexus as well, but it is connected to our physical brain.
okay, so can you ask if any of our thoughts come from our solar plexus?
Our thoughts come from our solar plexus. Most of them.
So when most people, I want to say you and I, but you're not most people. When
Well,
most
you're not
people,
either.
right? When I have a thought, I feel like it's in right behind my eyes, right?
Really?
To isolate where a thought really is, I mean, it seems like quite obvious that it might be from the brain, but a better way to think of this question is, our thoughts, the thoughts that we have all day long, are they happening on a physical level or a metaphysical level?
That's also we're having metaphysical.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and I'm glad that was the answer, because that's
Why? Why does that make sense to you?
just because of the way I interact with space and universe around me. I feel like I'm sharing the scene, and everything's kind of like a play unfolding, and I'm not the only participant, and I can verify that by the way that synchronicities present themselves. Um, People have to get way more into synchronicity than, it's not just 777 and stuff like that. It's all kinds of stuff. It's a divine timing of the words on the radio, paired with thoughts that are in your head. You know, everything that's happening around you is being consumed by your consciousness, which you are sharing with the world and the universe around you. So, you know, synchronicity is a whole topic. But synthetic brains, or do any exist?
Synthetic human brain exists. They're trying, but I don't feel like they've succeeded.
So I feel like, let's just say 50 years, I think maybe we might have something close. Could a human
You know what just came through to me?
tell me?
If they make a synthetic brain with AI capability within it, embedded in it.
Oh yeah, you gotta assume so. Um, but the question is will we be able to get transplants if we have brain diseases in the future?
Will we be able to have transplants if we get brain diseases in the future? Not necessarily. No. Your brain is very unique to your soul and your subconscious. It was designed specifically for you with your DNA.
So every Discovery Channel perspective on the brain shows a neural network lighting up, representing your thoughts. Can we ask Source if when these synapses are firing, is this what makes up what we call a thought?
No.
So what is happening in the brain when areas of the brain are firing from Source's perspective? What is really happening when our brain is activating and we're thinking at the same time?
Well, it's good. So the brain is very complex, okay? And it's more than just these synapses in the brain. It also has these connections that are dipping down into the subconscious, into the soul, and into the solar plexus, right? The solar plexus is like ascending, excuse me, and receiving place, like a data processor. And so often the thoughts are coming from there. So
Are coming from where?
the solar plexus. So
Okay.
instead of we think, that the brain is making thoughts sort of within the brain itself, it's actually not. It's actually communicating on a constant basis to the solar plexus.
So can we just assume that the brain is more of a middleman for the thoughts?
Is the brain the middleman for the... Exactly.
Cool. And I think
because thought form is energy, right? And energy is a mathematical equation. And the frequency of that thought form is based in mathematical equation and programming. Were all of our thoughts pre-programmed before we got here to the earth plane? Not all, but most. That's freaky.
maybe general.
That's so scary. Like even our thoughts. And most people think thoughts are private. They're not private. The spirit world knows our thoughts. Source knows our thoughts. The universe knows our thoughts. Why? Because it's energy. It's a mathematical equation.
Mm-hmm.
They can decode it. We, with our even though we as humans, we have complex brains, it's still very oversimplified compared to the universe.
So when someone's in a coma,
it's interesting because I can actually talk to people in comas.
Right. Yeah. So we got to find a brain that isn't active. So let's just say basically the only thing that's on in a coma brain are the basic mechanisms, firing your heart and stuff. And, on quote unquote paper, everything else seems to be off. For Source, can the person still hear you and register what you're saying if they're in a coma?
Absolutely. And whatever you're saying is being stored as energy within them.
But is the person aware that you're talking to them, like on a conscious level?
No, only on a subconscious level.
When someone is in a coma, is it something like, since there's no brain activity, what is happening to their consciousness? Are they experiencing anything?
Not so much within the brain, but their conscious. So is their conscious mind, is that running? The conscious mind is not running, only the subconscious, the solar plexus, and the soul.
So if someone is in a coma, are they living in a dream world? Are they in a state of dreams, basically?
These are good questions. A constant state, a dream state. Yes, they're in a dream state. So their consciousness is gone from their conscious mind. They're most likely traveling.
So we've talked about time in the dream world versus time here. And I don't know, let's just say 2 month patient, a 2 month coma patient. Question for source isn't the consciousness tired of traveling after like 2 human months of being in a coma?
No, because there's no time attached to that travel.
Could it be possible that someone would experience multiple lifetimes in another parallel reality while their body's in a coma?
No. Can they see their past lives? They can possibly travel back to their past lives, but it wouldn't be that the soul is having many lifetimes at once.
So when a person's in a coma, are they communicating with their spirit team, or are they just in like a dream state, kind of randomly flying around in space, like how we do every night?
Yes, that is correct. They're randomly flying around in a dream state, going into different astral plane levels, possibly connecting with others on those planes.
Yeah.
It may be, what I'm getting is that the person had to go into a coma in order to have that spiritual awareness that they weren't able to achieve here, living in a physical working body. So somewhere the consciousness had to shut down in order to have that spiritual connection.
So would source say that everyone who's had a coma and lives undergoes like a spiritual awakening on some level?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Even though, that reason is difficult for, the loved ones. But yes.
Can you ask source if lion's mane helps the brain at all? It's a mushroom.
It does a little bit, yes. What is that?
Really tasty mushroom. It's supposedly really good for your brain, according to, basic research. Like, who really knows? Research hasn't really come that far. But very tasty. You got to fry in oil, though, or else it's really terrible. But I would love to find one on a tree somewhere. Um, I don't know. People who have brain problems, if you were to talk to like an herbalist or naturalist, they would say take this mushroom. It's supposed to help with everything, uh, you know, related to the brain, like anxiety,
nervous. So the plasticity of a brain, which means like how fast it can rebuild itself. People kind of associate with this mushroom. Mm, a very brain focused mushroom. That's about it for that one. Okay. Can your brain get too full of information, or will it keep filling up forever?
No, it can fill up forever. It's actually infinite if you're able to unlock the power of the brain.
Can we ask Source if there's a life hack that would allow us to learn easier, quicker?
It's all about computation. So there could be ways that your brain can compute faster than others, but it's usually specific to yourself.
Yeah, I keep trying to learn a couple languages, and I feel like I'm just too old to learn anything anymore.
Oh, oh, what languages are you trying to learn?
Mostly interested in learning Russian.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if there's any cool Russian speakers out there, you can email me. But I like Italian and Spanish, and I would like to learn Chinese. It's just also hard. Also, I want to learn Japanese as well. But it's really hard to learn after you're at a certain age, I think, in my opinion. Languages, at least. If we were to talk to a brain in general, what message would it have for us?
If we were able to talk to a brain in general, what message would it have for us? Well, it would automatically want to go in protective mode because it doesn't like the fact that what goes on, the thoughts and the exchanges are actually open to others.
Can you ask a brain why it has the ability to have migraines?
It's a strong, it's an indication. It's an indication of what? A problem. It's an indication of a problem.
So this is what sucks about migraines is research is really, it's like one of the hardest things. I mean, there's harder things obviously, but to figure out. I mean, one of the leading cures, quote unquote, is just putting Botox into you. People who get Botox report far less migraines a month than normal. So maybe that's a good question, is maybe for Source or anyone who's listening in our sci-fi gallery, why Botox helps migraines?
Because it calms the nerves that are radiating the pain.
Yeah, I'm a chronic migraine sufferer myself, and I've tried everything in the books, and finally decided to take medicine, and now I have a nice quality of life. so
Oh,
I can't say medicine is terrible as much as I wanted to for like 10 years. I'm not the kind of person who doesn't take medicine, but
did you take Botox?
no, I think that's too gross. It's like horse tranquilizer or whatever it is. So gross. But I mean, I actually, I'm not saying it's gross for people to do on their faces. I think that's cool. Wrinkles suck. Just for clarification. I think to take it medicinally though, like, I don't know. That sounds so weird. Like, I don't know where they would inject it. I feel like you'd have to inject it to your brain, right? No,
Uh,
I'm just joking. But obviously, it's
yeah, where
weird.
do they inject the blood? I feel like, it just helps to numb the nerve endings. It's like an overactive nerve ending or nerves, like a cluster of nerves.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's what's interesting is why don't things like chamomile tea or like lavender tea stop a migraine?
Why doesn't chamomile tea or lavender tea stop a migraine? Because they can't numb the nerve pain. Migraines are nerve pain.
Yeah. So maybe I need Botox if anyone knows a good doctor. um Waveforms. So let's talk about the deepest state of meditation. Let's ask Source, is there any positives for the brain when we go into a no thought type meditation?
Not really. It's more of a cleansing of the body.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. Um, how can we sync our brain to higher realms?
By unlocking them.
How does an average person unlock information that is in the angelic realm?
No, that's all held in the DNA. So if your DNA and you don't have that programming, you may not be able to do it.
Okay, well, on that note, let's talk about the brain control that Buddhist monks have. So
Okay.
something super interesting is a Buddhist monk, some really cool footage that you can YouTube is, for instance, like some monks will go out into the freezing cold and they take a wet towel and they have a certain type of meditation where they raise their body heat so high that they actually go out there and they can't come back in until they steam all of the water off of the towel. And it's a really cool sight to see because they have that control. How do Buddhist monks control their body temperature like that?
That's all in their mind.
Do they simply just envision having a hotter body?
Yes.
Or is a typical Buddhist monk imagining maybe like the sun in this instance?
No.
Can Source give us any information on how we can change our body temperature?
Well, yeah, you can with deep concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to connect with the body. So this is where mind, body, and soul have to be in alignment. If you have absolute mind, body, and soul alignment, the brain can control just about anything within the body. So if there's a part of the body you want to heal and you have absolute mind, body, and soul connectivity, you just direct, your brain and those connections down to the part that needs healing. And then it works its magic.
So, guess Source, if a breathing technique alone could change the way our brain reacts to the outside world of our body?
Does yes, it can.
Why would a breathing technique affect us so greatly?
Because it can control the brain waves.
I think it's not Ayurvedic. I think it might be Ayurvedic. Is that the?
It's almost like the breathing, it's a regulation for the brain waves.
Can you ask Source if there's any benefit to the body practicing alternate nostril breathing?
Yes, it's extremely beneficial for healing.
Why would this help us so much?
Because again, it can inadvertently direct the brain waves to heal the body.
I've been looking for a product like this my whole life.
Sorry, I was just trying to get to this point where I could copy this order. So can you ask Source what kinds of things we could heal with this style of alternate nostril breathing?
You can heal just about anything.
Could someone heal their kidneys with this style of breathing?
Yes. How long would we have to do that for, though?
I'll leave that up to the Source crew.
It would have to be for a minimum of an hour.
So can you ask Source if it matters which nostril you breathe in versus out of?
No, but I feel like there's a lot of benefit from the left.
So Source recommends breathing in through the left and out through the right.
That's correct, yes.
Cool. Can we hit this question with someone else too? I just for the sake of for fun, can we ask Bashar if he agrees that I don't know if you want to even try and pronounce this. It's called Nadi Shoden Pranayama. Does Bashar think this would help people more than they think it could?
No,
What does Bashar think about this style of breathing?
it gives us power and control over our brain waves, which normally we don't have.
Mm-hmm. So would Bashar say that we need to pair this with intent to heal?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I feel like, with my very limited knowledge, that something like this, you're probably kind of in a meditative state, not really thinking. And I have a feeling that something like this is just gonna work better if you have an intent. That's because that's kind of like how law of attraction works. So working on the brain waves, it's it's like, where do we go from here?
Well, I think this was excellent, and we can stop this one now and then go into a part 2.
Yeah, we definitely talked about that one before. I feel like a lot of these other questions we've definitely talked about already. in the past. I think that was a pretty good video.
Yeah, I do too. Well, thank you. This was excellent. And I hope you all enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, not only to this channel, but also to the backup channel. Read the first comment. You'll see all the information there that you need to know. Okay. There's always a chance that this channel can get taken down. The world does not like psychics, and they're trying to shut out this information. So make sure that you subscribe to the backup channel. You go to the website, psychiclizcross.com. You're on that newsletter list. If we get shut down for any reason, you will know where to find us. We're going to be on a backup channel. Be prepared, get on the backup channel. Okay.
Oh,
So anything else from you, Mr. Robot?
not for now.
Okay. And just remind us again what your site is.
Yeah. So I'm an energy healer. I work remotely. I can work with anyone. On that note, I was going to say anyone in the world, and it opened up my my question to, I wonder if I could tap into people on other worlds, and I kind of wanted to ask Bashar that. We'll save that for another day.
Yeah, that'll be part 2.
Cool.
Stay tuned. All right. Well, great. Thank you so much. And what is your website again?
Yeah, it's just myhealing.site.
Great. All right. Well, we'll stop this one here. Thank you.